everyone. Welcome to Soul and Story. We are so glad that you're joining us wherever you are along the way, whether it's Tuesday morning, excuse me, or another time. And I was just thinking about how funny it would be if you guys and ladies could see Cindy and I during all that intro stuff because we're here ready to go, and then we're just jamming to this classical music and she was doing something with her hands. It's so fun. But I am Sara R. Turnquist, clean Christian historical romance author and speaker. And earlier this month, I published my 26th work of fiction.
Yay.
And I think the cover is right back here. You can see it. Oh, if my chair gets out of the way, there's the cover. I always have my newest book sitting there, but I'm already diving into the next book. It's so exciting and it's so different. This last one that I published is set in the late 18 or the early 1900s during the Gilded Age and out west. And the one I'm working on now is the last book in my medieval series. So I'm back in the 1400s and in the Kingdom of Bohemia, which is today's Czech Republic.
Yeah.
So
it's really good.
Me.
It's amazing how you can jump from late 1800s to early 1900s to go back into the 1400s. It's and I will say that as your assistant, I get to read. As your organizational manager, I get to help read along, and it's really good. It's I feel like as I'm helping you write a book, that is my favorite book, and then the next one becomes my favorite book. So
I feel the same way when people ask me what is my favorite book, although that's kind of like picking a favorite child.
Right.
If you're a reader out there, then when somebody asks you what your favorite book is. Sometimes that's hard to narrow down, especially if you're a prolific reader. So for me, it's always the book that I'm writing right now because I'm so into it and I'm in the characters and trying to help them find their way through their obstacles to find faith and love and that happily ever after.
Exactly. You're very invested in them while you're writing about them. Yeah.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah. Well, I'm Cindy Smith, and I am a beginning novelist, author. I just finished the first draft of my first novel last week, or 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, because last week I just kind of took the whole week off and didn't do any editing. And this week I'm starting to go back and edit. I had read something somewhere is like, you need to let it sit. After you finish it, before you start doing the self edits, you need to just let it sit. And so I did. And so I'm excited. As I've said before, I love Jane Austen and I love all things historical romance, contemporary romance. And I just am excited to be able to use my gifts to share with other people and hopefully encourage them to seek the Lord as they're being entertained. But today we are going to speak about, or we're discussing the importance of having routines and rhythms. So Sara, what are your thoughts about routines and rhythms?
Well, I always think that when we deal with something like this, where the terms can be a little bit vague and a little bit, especially with routines and rhythms, where sometimes those terms can be interchangeable. I think that it's important that before we begin this discussion, to define these words and discern between routines and rhythms. And this is always the part of the class where I like to pull out that old Webster's dictionary, and I have some notes here on what the dictionary says about these words. Okay, so routine is defined, according to Webster, as of a commonplace or repetitious character, ordinary, routine problems, as an example. Also, of or relating to or being in accordance with established procedure. Now, rhythm has a longer definition because it pertains to the way you're using that word. If you're using it in the sense of like music or sound, it's an ordered, recurrent alternation of strong and weak elements in the flow of sound and silence in speech, or the aspect of music comprising all the elements of accent, meter, tempo that can relate to forward movement. A characteristic rhythmic pattern is an example of that use of the word. And I think I'm using all these definitions because I think there are pieces of them that we relate to when we talk about rhythms in general.
Mhm.
Talking about movement, it's a movement fluctuation or variation marked by the regular recurrence or natural flow of related elements. So, an example of that would be the rhythms of country life. And then, biologically speaking, we're talking about a regular, recurrent, we keep hearing this word recurrent in these definitions,
Mhm.
regular, recurrent, quantitative change in a variable biological process. And an example of that would be our circadian rhythm. So, I think when we're looking at what we're looking at is the regular recurrence of natural flow of related elements combined with the natural rhythm of our bodies. So
Absolutely.
the flow of things that are coming together and the rhythm of our bodies. I think when we combine those two pieces of rhythm, we're getting to the heart of what we really mean when we talk about rhythm.
Yeah, and I think as you were saying that, it makes me think about rhythm becomes things that we value.
Mm,
Um, I know for me, I love those definitions and routine. Um, for me, is like chores. The chores that I do, like remember, are the importance of. I'm sorry, that's dinging. The importance of making our bed. Remember that talk we had.
mhm,
And I feel like I need to make my bed just because it's part of my day. It's something I automatically
mhm,
do. And rhythms
yeah,
are the things that I feel that fill me up. They energize me to carry out my daily tasks.
mhm,
A rhythm that I do each day that I need to that is something that I value. Like I don't necessarily value making my bed so much. I feel like it's something that I do as part of my day, but the rhythm
mhm,
is spending that I value is spending time with the Lord and having that
mhm.
quiet time each morning before I get my day started. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would actually argue that you do value making your bed. Going back to the episode that we talked about how it speaks to different aspects of our character, and there are things that people that routinely make their beds have in common, as far as productivity and so on and so forth. So
That's true.
I think you probably value it, but more of a subconscious kind of way.
Yeah,
So that's an interesting
absolutely.
that's an interesting point. Things that we value. It seems to me that routines are more descriptive of shorter stretches of activity um, that we set out to do. Maybe by time, like I do this at 10 o'clock and then I do this at 11 o'clock, but maybe not. In our house, we set up routines like these are the things you need to do to get to video game time. So those are part of the morning routine for our kids. I do things as part of my morning routine, for example, and I like for that to start at a certain time, but it's more important to me the steps of the routine rather than the time that it happens. But for some people, the time is important. Whereas rhythms speak to the flow of our day. I
Mhm,
think that we can consciously determine both,
mhm.
but I would say that a routine is a practice while a rhythm is more of a flow.
Yeah, I like that.
So I think routines can become rhythms, but let's go ahead and talk routines first. What are some routines that are a part of your day? Some examples of routines
Yeah.
in your life, Cindy.
Well, for my morning, I have like you have morning routines and then I have like bedtime routines. And so in the morning, I get up, I get dressed, and then I have breakfast, and then I go upstairs to my office. I like to sit in my chair. I have my
Mm,
quiet time. I do a little reading, and then I'm trying to establish I kind of I want to have a routine where I clean something each day. That's taking a little bit longer for me to get into the habit of. And then I have my bedtime routine, like I said. So I tend to go and take a shower, get what I'm either I plan out what I'm going to wear tomorrow or I'll get out what I'm going to wear tomorrow. And then I go to bed and I read. I used to watch videos, but that affects my
mm,
circadian rhythms that you talked about. And I remember one time you just sharing that maybe I should start not watching videos because that would might affect how I
Mhm.
sleep. And so, yeah, I do have that rhythm of reading now versus watching, a routine of read. My tongue is tied. Oh my exactly. So I have that rhythm, a routine of reading versus watching. So that helps me. What about you?
I have been trying to hone my morning routine. I like the sound of yours, but my rhythm in the morning is that I get up, have coffee, get dressed, and start my day. I want to be more intentional about the pieces of that morning routine, such as washing my face, having that quiet time with the Lord, because these are things that end up happening sporadically throughout my day. I mean, of course, I don't wash my face until the end of the day if I put on makeup. But oftentimes, that washing my face in the morning, I'll just be honest, it doesn't happen every morning because I don't have a good set rhythm or routine for doing that. I have a routine written out, but I don't practice that enough that it has become a rhythm for me. So the time with the Lord too, it ends up happening sporadically at some point in the day, and sometimes it's missing altogether.
Yeah. One of the things that I feel like for me, a drawback that I have to routines, because I do think that they're important, but I think I know my personality is if something happens and I get out of that routine, I don't adjust very well. Whenever Sean and I've gone on a vacation, it takes me like a good 24 hours to get out of that kind of anxiety that my routine is messed up before I can
Mhm.
relax. And then when I get home, it takes me another 24 hours to get back into the routines. But I do think that we shouldn't be hard on ourselves if we are finding things that we want to be in our routine that we're hit or miss about. I think it's okay to be hit or miss. I think it's okay to have the desires and be striving for those desires. Well, not even
Mhm.
striving, because more like just like working towards
Yeah, yeah.
making an effort, being diligent.
Mhm.
So I think it's okay. We shouldn't beat ourselves up if we're like, I want to have a quiet time every morning, but it's just not happening. Because I think we all go through stages in our life where when my mom
Mm.
was living with us and she had dementia, I would read on the U Bible app, the U version.
Mhm.
I would just do a short, maybe 5 minute devotional on my phone, and that was all I had time for. But now that she's passed and my girls are grown, I have more
Mm.
time. So I think
Yeah.
um, don't let the routines become something. I guess my point is don't let the routines become something that you have to like live by and
Mhm.
can't adjust, but also to give yourself grace to know that routines will change and develop over time.
Yeah, I think what you're saying about the quiet time specifically is one of the things that a lot of mamas especially are challenged by, especially mamas of littles. And I think we miss the purpose of the quiet time in that because it becomes a checklist item. It becomes something that we feel compelled to do in a duty sort of way or an obedience sort of way. And there is an obedience aspect to it, but the quiet time is for you. It's for me to commune with God and to seek Him. So it is for my benefit. It is out of obedience, of course, as well, but it is really to refresh myself spiritually and to connect with God on a level that we cannot connect with Him any other way other than by worshiping, focusing, and spending time with Him. But
Yeah.
I think we feel sometimes that God is going to be mad at us. Even if we don't consciously feel that, I think sometimes underneath the surface, we think God is going to be mad at me if I don't have a quiet time or if I go for a week without a quiet time.
Mhm.
Then he's going to be really mad. But God is just not like that. It's
It's
like he
not.
has a gift for us every day, like a present, a fresh present for us every day. And when we come to that quiet time, when we come to that time with him, we get to open that gift and experience it.
I love it.
Now he's not mad at us. We just don't get the gift that day, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
So for rhythms, I think there is an aspect of the routines, like for me, like my ideal morning routine that can become a rhythm, but there are also rhythms that expand further out. We're talking mostly about daily rhythms, but these regular spiritual practices or routines that become spiritual rhythms, such as reading the word, like we're talking about, spending time in prayer and worship, being a part of a weekly church body, these develop in us a rhythm of adoration and a posture of awe and obedience before the Lord.
Yeah.
One of the routines for me that has become a rhythm is that the first thing I do when I get to my office in the morning, as I turn on my computer and write at least one scene. This is a fairly new routine that's become a rhythm for me. I started it because my ideal writing time is in the afternoon. But for my age kiddos, that's when they were coming home from school, doing homework, wanting to interact with me when dinner needed to be prepared and when we need
Mhm.
to sit down and eat dinner. That's all that window right there is my ideal writing time. The words I write during that time are more plentiful and better quality. Need less editing is what that means. Um, but my second best time is in the morning, first thing when I get into the office. So my ideal time has to be, I sacrifice that for time with my family when they need me.
Right.
And so I write in the morning first thing. And that has become a really great routine. And like I said, it's become a rhythm because when I come into the office, already my brain is in that writing mode. Already when I walk out of the bedroom, my brain is inspired and ready to write.
Yeah.
Of course, coffee in hand doesn't hurt. Right?
Right.
What are some of the healthy rhythms that you can identify in your life, Cindy?
Well, I've already talked about my quiet
Mhm.
time with the Lord. But probably 5 years ago, I started doing um, a Pilates program.
Mm,
And I know it's exercise, but I've got the lady that runs this. She talks about progress over perfection and grace over
mm,
guilt, and so it's something that now has become a rhythm in my day. I I
mm,
really need. I do it 5 days a week, and I need that time to get on the mat and move my body, and just having that
mm,
movement and finding out what my body can do. At first, it was a chore. I'm like, I don't want to do this. This
mm.
is hard. I hurt afterwards. I mean, a good hurt.
Preach, preach.
But now it's like, okay, I want to get on the mat because it helps to bring me back to focus on
Mm,
whatever's the next, I find that sometimes doing my writing after I do my Pilates session, I'm more focused, and it's become a rhythm. So I'm hoping, because I don't have that rhythm of writing like you do, where
mm,
it's because I put it on my calendar, but I don't like specifically say at this time I'm
mm,
going to write. And I just speaking now, I'm realizing maybe I should do my Pilates and then have my writing time after that, because I
mm.
can do Pilates at different times during the day. But I think if I link those two together, then it will become a rhythm, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that those are generally called habit stacks,
Okay.
and studies show that they can be very effective in making both of those habits more of a routine and more of a rhythm if they're connected together. It increases uh, your not your ability, but it increases your regularity of both of those habits.
Okay. That's good to know,
Mhm.
because I think that I do find that when I have written after doing Pilates, I'm much more focused. And
Mhm.
like you said, the better quality words come out. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Um, I also feel like sleep has become needs to be a rhythm, a more important rhythm for me, especially since I've gone through menopause. For all those ladies
Mhm.
out there who've gone, they understand. My sleep is not the same. And like I said earlier, I've stopped. I used to listen to, I would put one of my AirPods in and I would listen to a show.
Mhm.
Usually it was an archaeology show, one that I've watched before. And I was mentioning to you that I just don't get a lot of good sleep. And so now, if I feel like I can't turn my mind off, I have the Dwell Bible app. I really love the Dwell Bible app. I
Mm.
know you have a Bible app that you like.
Mhm.
On the Dwell Bible app, they have it's called Sleep to Scriptures, and it's got different passages. that you can listen to. The ones that I like to listen to, this lady's voices that does them, she's very soothing and calm, and
Mm,
she reads the whole book of Esther or the whole book of Ruth, and
mhm,
I like to listen to those two especially. And what they do is she has you go through like some relaxation things, and then she'll read it one time, and then she'll read it a
mm,
second time, and she'll read it a third
mm,
time. So I usually fall asleep before the
mm,
first time is through, and then
mm,
um, it's much more relaxing. I feel like my brain really is able to just shut down and be at peace. And I've noticed that on those nights I have a much deeper sleep. So
mm.
that rhythm of sleep is very important at this time in my life because I'm usually tired. What about
Aren't
you?
we all? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm tired too. I'm just kidding. But I am. For me, spiritual rhythms, especially these rhythms of rest and self care and rhythms of movement and hydration, they're very important in our lives for everybody, for our bodies, for our spirits, for our emotional and mental well being. But I don't want to create any sense of worry if these things are not already a part of your life. Setting up helpful, healthy routines can foster good rhythms in your life because we were made to have rhythms. We've
Hmm.
talked a little bit about our circadian rhythm, but just look at the rhythms that God has set out in the Bible. God created and rested. Jesus prayed in solitude and preached and served the people. The earth has rhythms daily, monthly, yearly. Creation has rhythms. Animals have rhythms. Animals that I'm going to say the word hibernate because that's what everybody uses, but it's actually a shallow state of torpor. But that's another story for another time. Insects are the only animals that truly hibernate. Anyways, there are seasonal rhythms that different animals and insects go through.
Yeah,
But we were created with at the very base of us, that circadian rhythm that can be very difficult to counter. We can assist our circadian rhythm in the ways that you and I have been talking about, like, not listening or watching something that's very stimulating in the evening, trying to stay away from the blue screens, all these things that you've heard before. I used to work in a sleep lab and I worked at night when people were sleeping, right? Because we needed to watch them sleep and have all the wires hooked up to them. And anybody who's been through a sleep study, everybody always says there's no way I can sleep with this on, but these are people with sleep problems.
mm,
So I'm telling you, every single patient I had in the years I worked in the sleep lab, not a single one couldn't sleep with all those wires on because they're sleepy people.
mhm.
Anyways, I learned firsthand by doing shift work, working at night and sleeping in the day, and from the sleep physicians that daytime sleep after a night shift has to be more hours because it is not the same quality of sleep
Wow,
as nightly sleep.
wow,
We are trying, in a sense, to hijack our body's natural rhythm. Also, the sleep physicians educated us that if you do night work for 3 years or more, it becomes very difficult, if not impossible, to switch back to day work and night sleeping. That alternate rhythm of working during the night and sleeping during the day becomes so ingrained
that's
that it
crazy.
completely reverses that natural rhythm. Isn't that interesting?
That's just crazy to me. That's very crazy
Mhm.
to me. I I think that it's important for us to go with the natural rhythms that God created us with. And I
Mm,
know that some people, it makes, some people can't not work at night. Like they have to work the night
yeah.
shift. Um, and I also have been thinking about the seasons that our earth goes through. Annie F. Downs in her podcast, That Sounds Fun, this year, they're kind of focusing on the seasons. And she talks about how what is going on with the earth. She started with winter. So, because we
Mhm.
were in the northern hemisphere, we were in winter, and just talking about how winter affects us and then how spring affects us. And that's where we are now. She hasn't gone into summer or
Mhm.
fall yet, but in the summer I have much more energy. I'm able to stay up later. you know 8 o'clock, it doesn't feel late to me in the summer, but then in the winter, 4 o'clock rolls around and I'm like, I'm ready for bed, because it's dark and it's
Mhm.
just our body adapting to what's going on around us. And so we do have those rhythms, and it's so important to honor them and to say, okay,
Mm.
maybe I don't do as much in the winter because it's darker earlier, and then I do more in the
Mhm.
summer.
I think we're so much in a habit as a society of pushing through, of
Absolutely.
making our bodies do things that they are crying out to us to do something different. And so while there are times that you have to push through, I think we need to do more listening to our bodies because they know what they need.
Hmm.
And so when we get hungry, eat. When you're thirsty, drink. When you're tired, there is something going on with your sleep that you need to look into because these again, we've talked about this. These rhythms are built into us and they are so core to who we are that we can't really, reverse them in the same way. We can't fight them for very long because your body will win. It
Absolutely,
will.
absolutely. Because in 2012, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and for the longest time, I really didn't have it under control. And I would have periods of exhaustion during the day where I just
Mm,
had to go to sleep. I couldn't stay awake. And now that my blood sugars are under control, um, through the help of medicine and exercise and diet and all that, I
mhm,
feel like I'm able to go through the day without maybe needing a nap or as long as a nap. I mean, I do have a period in the afternoon where I will rest for like 45 minutes, which
mhm.
that means like I'll read or just hang out with Ellie and not be working or not doing chores or not, just having that period of just where I'm
Mm,
relaxed. But I don't feel the need to go to sleep like I used to. Um,
yeah.
so I think it's your advice to find out what's going on physically if you're tired a lot is important.
Yeah, and sometimes there are underlying physical conditions that you need medical care for, something like chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia or lupus or something like that. There are things that cause chronic tiredness, thyroid issues. There are just a number of them. And so these are things, if you're tired all the time and you can't address it with your sleep, or it's not being addressed with your sleep, talk to your doctor about it. Being tired is not part of getting older.
Yeah,
It's just not.
absolutely.
I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm just getting older. Well, there is some fatigue that comes with that, but not that day long fatigue, that bone weary fatigue, that need to nap. That's not normal for just an aging thing.
Exactly.
But I do think it becomes very prudent to acknowledge and respect the rhythms of our bodies and honor God with the routines we set up that will
Mhm.
be a part of our daily rhythms. So, I'm going to give you an assignment out there. Tell us about your rhythms and routines in the comments. What
Mhm.
is one thing you would like to add to your daily rhythms?
Yeah. Do you have one that you can think of off the top of your head?
Um, I would like I need to habit stack. Like
Okay.
you're saying, I would like to make a quiet time a more consistent part of my day. So I need to think and pray on whether that needs to go with coffee in the morning or after I write,
Yeah,
where does it need to go, but I need to put it somewhere not so that it not be not in a it's got to go here, it's got to fit in kind of way, but in a let me help set myself up for success getting to that gift each day.
absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm,
I have for the longest time confused rest with sleeping. And so one of the
mhm,
rhythms I want to figure out is how can I fit a time of rest into my week? A Sabbath rest, as you
yes,
say, as we've talked about. So yeah, but we
mm,
would love to hear from all of you. What rhythms, maybe what routines work for you? What rhythms do you want to have and that you would like to create? We would love to hear from you. So please join us or share with us in the comments, share with us on Facebook, on Sarah's page, and just reach out to us. We love to hear from you. And so next week we'll be back, or our next time we'll be back, and we will have another thing that's important to us to discuss. And we hope that you'll join us. You guys have a great week. Let's rest. Have a great week.
And a restful week and a week of fostering good rhythms.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening. This episode is over, but your writing journey continues. Visit saraturnquist.com to find links to help you achieve your writing dream.